Space whales? Nope, rather deal with devils. Chapter 54, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Running a Black Friday sale for the next week, November 26th, 25 to December 3rd, 25, with a 40% off first month and yearly subscriptions to my Patreon with this code 3B10. Kunou had taken a good shower to get rid of any blood stains and then used her own magic to fix her shrine maiden outfit, so when she came out of the bathroom, she looked a hell of a lot better without half of her chest being dyed red in her blood. You look a lot better, Kunou. So how are you feeling? I asked with some concern. Kunou's golden eyes met mine, and she smiled with a small flush entering her cheeks as she responded happily. I am feeling great, honestly. But I am rather hungry. I blinked, hearing that, and said easily. Alright, let's go get some food then. Standing up, I mused on whether I should jump straight into going after the demon lord general in the area, but then shook off the thought as I wasn't overly worried about it. As we walked to the door, I felt something on my wrist, and I looked down and saw Kunou kinda blushing as she muttered, knowing I was looking at her, as she had gingerly pinched the sleeve of my jacket at my wrist. I don't want to get lost, and Mama always made me hold her arm or hand when we walked around the streets of Kyoto. She said in clear embarrassment, making me want to coo at the adorable younger girl. But I didn't make her more embarrassed and only smiled as I gently took her small hand into my own as I said gently. That's a lovely thing to do. But don't worry, I don't mind if you need a hand, I will protect you and take you home as soon as a week passes by. She looked back up at me, and I saw a bevy of emotions in her eyes before she bit her lower lip and nodded before looking down away from my gaze. I then led us out of the room, with us leaving the inn to go to a nicer restaurant next door to the Adventurers Guild. He was too nice. Kunou thought with a heavy heart as she looked at her savior, who was bringing her a plate of more European style than she was accustomed to, but thankfully, you could never go wrong with plenty of eggs and toast. She watched her savior with confused eyes as so many thoughts ran through her head. At first, she honestly thought as she awoke that her injuries were an illusion or something. And that her death was magic that managed to ensnare her mind, while her beloved mother was kept busy by that nasty turtle. But as she went into the bathroom and washed the blood off herself, first, she realized that the blood was her own, as her own Yukai Kitsune senses were far stronger than any human's, and she knew for a fact that the blood covering most of her body under clothes was almost entirely her own. And secondly, she remembered all too painfully the horrible, horrible feeling of her life slipping out of her body just as he landed in the clearing to save her. She barely held in a shiver as the memory of a literal reaper coming to her before Jake managed to seal her wounds and then the reaper holding an arm out at her in confusion as Jake leaped through a portal, and she truly lost consciousness then. That dummy! How dare he save the princess of the Yukai by getting such a debt? She mentally yelled, feeling all the weight of such a thing falling on her own shoulders, as she truly felt bad. As being the future heiress of all Yukai, she was well aware that gods were pardoning her language, but complete assholes one and all. She shuddered to think of the horrid tasks that the cruel, capricious goddess would cunningly force him to do to break his heart, mind, and spirit for their own amusement. Oh, how terrible the journey he would have to partake to repay the divine favor of her own resurrection. Kunou watched Jake eat his own toast, and she held in a squeal at how hot he looked with those glowing eyes of his that seemed to have seen through so much, and then after a moment, she shifted and realized something. Maybe Mama can help him get that bitch goddess off his back. Plus Mama needs a good friend who isn't some weirdo who wants her to make more nine-tailed foxes, humph. But the young Kitsune's thoughts were cut off as Jake shifted, and after putting down his fork, he spoke. So Kunou, you want to go blow off some steam and blow up an old castle that is filled with monsters? For a moment, she gaped at the young man's grin at how crass such a question was. To ask her, Kunou, the nine-tailed fox daughter of Yasaka, the darling flower of Kyoto, to go and just blow up a castle. Kunou smiled beautifully with her tails dancing back and forth hypnotically as she responded excitedly. Of course. I need to train my fox fire to get revenge after I go back. The little Kitsune priestess was an adorable little spitfire, so knowing that Kunou had her own pride, I decided to help her get a bit stronger if I could while she was with me. With Kunou riding on my back in a piggyback ride, I flew out of the city of Axel after I got a map of the area and the surrounding lands, which thankfully included the old border castle that Belgia was going to be in. We made good time to reach the castle itself, as it was only a good half an hour's walk from the town of Axel, and thus by flying it was far easier to get there, seeing as we were flying over the surrounding forestry. Once we got to the castle, I took us to a nice hill with an opening in the trees that led to the castle, and I smiled, saying, "Alright, Kunou, go ahead and blast away, haha." I joked, and as Kunou created some magical glyphs that absorbed her fox fire, I had an idle thought running through my mind as Kunou still was holding onto my hand with the hand that wasn't creating magical glyphs. Oh dear, she is latching onto me,